Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Your Season Life, where we are discovering and living life at any age. I'm Lisa Boson. I'm here to introduce you to people like you and me who have rediscovered themselves, stretched their abilities, and to me, kept their light under a bushel basket. I hear their stories and think, wow, that is so cool. These are ordinary people doing the extraordinary. So what are we doing? Well, you know how you'd love to hear your peers succeed? Get inspired by those who just try? That's us. That's It's Your Season Life. Don't forget to follow us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm there sharing weekly updates and, of course, what's in season, be it people, food, feelings, and nature. So let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this episode. It is Monday, January the 11th, and my guest today is Emily Olander. She is the co-founder of Root Shoot Malting in Loveland, Colorado. Emily and her husband, Todd, cultivated Root Shoot Malting to specialize in the highest quality local grain and craft malt available to the brewing and distilling industries. So for listeners who may not know, Northern Colorado is one of America's most esteemed locations for craft beer in the up-and-coming Colorado distilling industry. As fifth-generation farmers in Loveland, Colorado, they respect the heritage of our region's agriculture and partner closely with the beer industry. Their family has farmed in northern Colorado since 1926, and that involves farming 1,500 acres of irrigated land in beautiful Loveland. They harvest alfalfa, rye, wheat, corn, and barley. From the ground to the glass of beer or spirits we might drink in this area or beyond, Root Shoot Malting serves the best of Colorado. They've won many awards, of which we're going to discuss in this podcast, but that's not all. Root Shoot Malting is also highly involved in preserving the longevity of Colorado agriculture in their special project, the 100-year lease. Their motto is together we can save family farms one beer at a time. And welcome our guest, Emily Olander. Thanks so much for joining me today, Emily.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I just love your story, and I want our listeners to get inspired and also kind of feel how they can connect with you all and just learn more about what you do. So let's just unpack it, and you just kind of go with it. How did you get to this place?
I know it's been 5 years in the making. Officially, I guess this summer, Root Shoot will celebrate its 5th-year anniversary. But prior to that, our family roots have been in Loveland since early 1920s, and even prior to that, Todd's family, they originally immigrated from Sweden. I think in the late 1890s, they homesteaded in Longmont. So, we've got some pretty long roots here in Colorado, and have really been farming for 5 generations in this area.
So there's a lot to that word that's in the title of your business name. It's not just about the barley root, but your roots here in Colorado and what your families have brought to this area.
Right. We knew that we wanted to have the somewhere in our name of our business, and so that's kind of where it stemmed from. We knew that we always wanted to live and stay in the place that both of us grew up in. Todd was born and raised on the farm that is still operating as Olander Farms, and I grew up down in Littleton. So, we both have a pretty long history here in Colorado.
Yeah. So he's been farming. I've been farming for close to a century now within the family. That's amazing. 100 years of one farm. You don't see that very often anymore, especially not here in northern Colorado. So tell us a little bit more. How did you make this, not transition, like added this whole element to your farming?
Sure. I know 100 years. We're coming up pretty soon, which is really exciting. We, I guess, originally had an idea of building a malt house way back in 2013 or 2014 with when Todd and his dad toured a brewery in Windsor. We, I was along for that ride as well. Just being in northern Colorado, you're surrounded by craft beer, and so you feel like, once you're able to legally drink beer, that's all you did is you surrounded yourself with the craft beer community, and that was a part of your life being here in Fort Collins in Colorado. So we did mini tours, and I think the missing link for us was, where did these brewers get access to their grain, whether it be barley or wheat or whatever it was that they were brewing with. Um, and we quickly found out that they were shipping their grains either from overseas or from out of the state. So, that not only were they didn't have access to local grain, but there really wasn't a supply chain here that connected the Colorado farmer to the Colorado brewer. So it was kind of a light bulb moment for us, knowing that we had grown barley for um, both Budweiser and Coors since, well, Todd's dad, I think, started growing barley in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and had worked with Budweiser, I think, early 80s, and then continued to work with Coors up until maybe 15 years ago. And, barley was just part of our repertoire at the farm. So they knew how to grow barley. We just didn't know how to malt or really what that entailed. So we kind of dove a little bit deeper into it and did some of our research for 3 or 4 or 5 years or so prior to even considering building a malt house, and thought that this was kind of our way to both add value to our grain at the farm and to give these brewers access to the local farm community.
So, for those that don't know what malting is, what is malting?
Good question. The technical aspect of malting is so far over my head because it's pretty scientific, but um, malt, there are 4 main ingredients that you need to brew beer. Um, Malt, hops, water, and yeast. And malt is, kind of where you get most of your alcohol from. So the malting process consists of steeping and, tricking this grain to grow again in our in our kiln drum germination combo that we have at the malt house. It's a big 30-foot drum that houses about 10 tons of malt. We've got 2 of those that we currently operate with. But it's about a 5-day process where it's sitting in the germination kiln. And then the last couple days after that, we kiln it. And that's kind of where you get most of your flavors from at the very end, whether you want it to be a darker malt or one that has a little bit more flavor characteristic to it. So it's quite the process, and I kind of leave that up to Mikey. He's our malt house manager, and him and Todd have found a good partnership in figuring out what malt and what brewers are wanting, or distillers. We also work with quite a few distillers as well, and it's kind of fun to not only be able to create a malt that's specific to some of these brewers, but to also be creative in our process too, with different grains and different varieties of barley or wheat or rye, etc.
Yeah, for those that are not, if I'm understanding correctly, Emily, you all have been in this just for a very short 4 or 5 years, but in this time, you all have won awards for your malting and grains. And so tell us a little bit, how did that happen? Along with hard work and determination, I'm sure.
A little bit of luck. I will throw that in there too. Yes. Um, so we are a part of the Craft Maltsters Guild. It's just an organization to give craft malt this voice. Um, and the last 2 years, the board of directors and the entire guild has opened up a what's called a craft malt cup. Um, it's an award that just showcases your product, and I think in 2019 we won gold medal. So we were very proud of that.
Yeah,
It
for
was
sure.
the first year that they held the awards, and I want to say there were right around maybe 20 malt houses throughout the U.S. that had entered. So, it was pretty rewarding for us, and just knowing that we were creating this product that we thought was good, but that was also being judged on how it performed in the brew house, or how it performed in the field. Like we knew we were creating something, but to have that that clarification, I guess, that we I'm sorry, I'm losing I'm losing my words here.
That's okay. Just pause and come back. You're good. Validation.
Validation. Thank you.
There we go.
Gosh, I'm like, clarification. What is this word? um, yes. So yes, we got validation that we were producing this award-winning malt. So that was pretty exciting for all of us at Root Shoot, to win this first place award for a malt that really is our base malt. It's our best-selling malt at the malt house because it's very versatile. You could use it for any base malt in any beer. So um, we were really excited about that. And then in 2020, they opened it up to two categories, and we had placed third in the Munich 10 category. So that was also great to know that we had won back-to-back awards, 2 years in a row, and that we were the only malt house in the U.S. that had done that.
Oh, wow.
So it's exciting
Yeah.
that this malt cup, I think, will evolve, and it's continuing for its third year coming up here in February. And we did enter our couple products into the award category this year. So we'll see. Fingers crossed that maybe we could get a third award. So it's exciting. I know that, on the malting side of things, to win awards is really pretty gratifying. But on the farm side of things too, I know that Todd has won a couple awards. I know he won Farmer of the Year back in 2014.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
Um, I think he won the Who's Who in agriculture that the Denver Business Journal organizes, and that was in 2020. Gosh, I think it was 2020. My timeline is all kind of meshed together in 2020, but that was early part of 2020 that he won that award too. So it's pretty exciting that I feel like Root Shoot is kind of making moves and being validated by what we're doing.
Oh, that is fantastic. It's such a short period of time when all this was blossoming for you all. And I'm just going to mention more for clarification on the malting. When we think about malting, and for those that don't brew beer and don't have the fortune to have a husband that brews beer like I do, and you hear a lot about beer, uh, malting is roasting and caramelization. And so if you're ever able to go and have the experience of going through the bins and understanding all the different colors and scent variations there are. That's probably not the right word because I'm not a brewer, but it adds that it adds that color and variety, and that's really where you get a lot of your taste is the malting process. So I don't want people to think it's like a chocolate malt. This is much more serious. You're taking grain, you're doing that first in process, and then you're roasting and caramelizing it to get the exact flavor. So there is a lot of science and chemistry, I would think, to this process. So,
There is.
yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's good. This is, it's just fascinating how you were all able to see an opportunity and go with it. And so, thinking about kind of the next steps, what happened next as you go through this, you are involved in this 100-year lease project. Can we like switch topics just a little bit, but on topic because we're still talking about farming and grain? How did that happen?
Absolutely. Well, it was kind of an evolution of a few things. We had worked with a videographer to promote Root Shoot to help us build some branding videos. And he and Todd and myself had talked about telling our story of not only the farm, but Root Shoot and how we would gain access to educating this consumer, whether it be a beer drinking consumer or a whiskey drinking consumer, and to understand that story behind what they're drinking. So a videographer had come to us, or we had come to them and wanted to have a monthly video that we had put out that would show every single aspect of what we do on a monthly basis. So whether that be planting or irrigating or at the malt house, um, or combining or harvesting, any of those things, we wanted to capture video of that. And so that took us about probably 2 years or 3 years in the making to come up with those brand videos that we could release on our website or give to our brewers to have something tangible to talk about with their customer as well. And in that process, it kind of it kind of evolved into, gosh, like this is important. And the more that our videographer, Traverse Image is their name, they're wonderful. They kept seeing over this 3 year process either more houses going up or oil wells that were being built. And it was just amazing that in this short period of time, the landscape was changing. And that story evolved into, hey, what if we take some of this footage that we have and talk about what you all are doing to conserve farmland? And so in that conversation with him, we also were having conversations behind the scenes with Colorado Open Lands, even the Cattlemen's Land and Trust, who are these conservation organizations that help protect farmland. And so we decided that we wanted to make a short film, a video from all of the short videos that he had compiled. And with that, we created 100-year lease. And the name of it, we don't necessarily have to own the land that we farm. We are happy to lease it, but to have a long-term lease or 100-year lease on a piece of land that we want to always stay as an agricultural piece of land here in Colorado was kind of our goal. And so as we had these conversations with not only the farmer who, the local farmers who were in the area, or the landowners that we were leasing our land from, we were trying to figure out how we do this with our community, the people who make things happen, Colorado Open Lands, for instance, and also kind of bring the brewing community into that. So kind of our connection to let these people understand what we struggle with on a daily basis with conserving agriculture land. It's just very quickly depleting,
Mm-hmm.
because development prices are very large. So, you know, you have to you have to try to either one, try to convince this farming family who either doesn't have any family to pass their farm on to, or the family is uninterested in farming. How can we protect that land and not have, a thousand houses built on it? So it's a hard conversation to have with some of these people because I understand the money aspect behind it too is huge for some people. So I get it. But I guess our passion is a little bit more um, with saving farms and keeping farmers on farms. So that's been our campaign. I think 2020 um, kind of stopped us a tiny bit. We were going to have plans to have, panel sessions and go to the breweries and distilleries and have conversations with the consumer and try to make some traction with how they could help, or if they could at least drink beer with malt that was produced from a craft maltster, either us or any of the other Colorado craft maltsters as well. So I think that that's still in the works to try to educate the consumer a little bit more and the brewers, but we'll kind of see where that takes us. The film is out there, and so that's what we're focusing on for now. So um, we have a a little bit of a traction, I guess. With sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. We
That's
can
okay.
pause
That's
there.
okay. Yep. When you're ready.
I was rambling.
Uh,
um,
you have a little bit of traction with.
um,
So let me ask you this, and
yes,
then maybe it'll come back. How about that?
yes.
Because I'm terribly passionate about agriculture coming in this area. Um, so so a lot of our listeners may not know that Colorado was really a huge breadbasket and just very, very fertile all along this front range with barley and sugar beets and just other products that when I do my own research of the area, it's really just phenomenal. And I love progress, and I'm sure you do too. But there's also this piece of the most arable land. There's possibility that there's a house sitting on it, and I struggle with that. Because I also understand, and there's a lot of support in Colorado for those smaller farmers, and I'm talking about the non-huge agricultural, 20,000 acre farms that may be seen in the Midwest. So there's really this push um, to help some of these farmers that are doing, especially specialty crops like you are, and trying to preserve these family farms. You are a farmer's wife. I know you're a professional too, Emily, but you're a farmer's wife. What are some of the challenges in northern Colorado that you see as a co-farmer with your husband, a farmer's wife?
Sure. I think we are pretty lucky to be in Colorado, where the farm to table movement it's it's pretty well known. I think that a lot of people are very interested in knowing where their food came from, where their beer was made, who's the farmer behind it. So we are pretty lucky to have that. Um, there are definitely challenges. I think that my passion originally really has never been farming. um, so I grew up in the city. I was a city girl down in Littleton, and
Mm-hmm.
I moved up to Fort Collins for my very first dental hygiene position back in 20 in let's see, I think it was 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So about 16 years ago, and I met Todd kind of through a friend of a friend, through the dentist that I worked for at the time, and it's kind of funny. We kind of joke that when Todd and I were first dating, I could not understand why he would not want to hang out with me, and 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 he just kept giving me all these excuses because of course we met in the summer, and that's when farmers are the most busy. So, he always had this excuse at the time, I thought, was that he was farming or he was in the tractor or he was irrigating or he was doing whatever he was doing at the farm. And I didn't understand that it takes a lot of work to farm and to have this um, this lifestyle as well. I think that that's what it is. Farming is just a lifestyle, and if it's in your blood, it's in your blood, and you're just passionate about it. So I quickly learned that if I wanted to hang out with Todd over the summer, I would probably have to sit in a tractor with him. And so I did. So I rode around in a combine when we were harvesting wheat or barley or corn at the time. And so I learned a lot about farming just early on in our relationship, because because you had to adjust your lifestyle if this was the person that you wanted to be with. So, and I think as our relationship grew, Todd and his dad um, they had been custom harvesting for the majority of Todd's farm career, and really the majority of Steve's farm career, and we knew they kind of wanted to get out of that aspect of farming because they were passionate about farming itself or growing the crop itself. So they didn't necessarily want to, I guess, work for other farmers just to harvest their crop. They wanted to do their own thing. So I think that's where that mind shift came in, where they wanted to grow their own crop, see it from start to finish, and then have a place for it to go. And so to bring value to this product and crop is something that they had always been thinking about since I knew Todd. And so finally, I think that this malt house was kind of their way to do that, and their way out of um, and or their way into transitioning the farm into something a little bit different, where they weren't totally strangle-held by the commodity prices
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
by yeah, the price of milk, the dairy farms that they worked with, or the
Mm-hmm.
price of corn. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was a way for them to um, kind of get out of that market
Mm-hmm.
and kind of form their own industry and diversify and take the risk out a little bit um, from that aspect of farming. So that was exciting, and that I had seen Todd grow in this 15 years that I had known him, from um, being this fifth generation farmer that had been growing corn and then barley and then corn and then barley for years and years, into something that was just more important to him. So that was exciting, and that's kind of why I then became passionate about it,
Mm-hmm.
because it was something that meant a lot to him, and I knew that it meant a lot really to our Colorado community. So um, it's been really exciting how it's evolved over the years, and I think that my role has kind of evolved too, just trying to tell that story, and trying to talk with the right people who we
Mm-hmm.
want to connect with.
So, what do you particularly love about what you're doing now?
Good question. Gosh, there are so many days where you have so many different challenges, and you just want to quit. But I love the community aspect of Root Shoot and
Mm-hmm.
Olander Farms. I think that I always say that there's always um, you want to support those that support you in return, and that there really isn't there's no such thing as too much community involvement. And if these small businesses are trying to survive and exist together, then I think that there are ways to help each other out. And so that's that's where I think Root Shoot is kind of it's set apart because of that. We've just been, especially in 2020, we've kind of had more of a philanthropic um, mindset to figure out, how can we help out other small businesses and how can we make sure that they survive, because ultimately we would not be here if craft breweries and craft distilleries did not exist, or home brewers or bakers or restaurants. There are so many different avenues for our malt products to go down, and if these people did not exist, then we would not be here. So it's kind of exciting to know that we are all in this together, and we are kind of in this um, co-opetition, I guess, where you aren't competing with each other. You're trying to survive and become better and have community involvement and um, show that support.
Excellent. So, there's ups and downs days, kind of how to kind of stay motivated. What jazzes you up and gets you going every day, Emily?
Well, gosh, good question. Um, I think, growing up down in Littleton, and maybe you don't know this, but I'm a Columbine High School graduate as well. And I think going through that experience in 1999 was something that taught me resiliency, and and that you have to look at the good in the world. So I feel that that's what motivates me, is because I kind of have the second chance at life, and there's a reason for that. So
Could you would
there you go.
would you mind going a little bit deeper on that, or what was it like?
Sure. Um, yeah. Yeah. I guess how deep do we want to go with that?
And if you don't, that's okay too.
That's okay. My sister and I, we were sophomores in high school at Columbine back in 1999, and um, you know, I her and I are twins, so we share a pretty special bond. So, and it's just her and I. We don't have any other siblings, but um, you know, that tragedy, I think, shaped both of us for um, it shaped who we are today. You are built on strength and courage, and like I said, you have to be resilient, and you have to overcome some of these hurdles that are that you're faced with, and you kind of have to learn how to move forward. I think that we went through a significant amount of counseling through that, because you're a kid when that tragedy happened, but yeah, you just learn to appreciate life, and you just live it to the fullest, knowing that your next day may not be tomorrow, and it may not come around. So I think that that's what I wake up to every morning, is that's my motivation, is that I have the second chance at life, and let's do it. Let's make something out of it, and let's figure out what my purpose is, because I think that there's a reason for both of us surviving.
I did not know that until we had this chat.
Not many people know that. Well, I mean, yes, people that are very close to me, of course, know that. But really, I mean, I don't talk about that often in my role with farming or brewing, because I guess it just doesn't come up often. But that's kind of those are the pillars that I'm built upon, and it does define who who our family is. So,
I mean, it takes a certain degree of resilience just to be a farmer, much less,
yes.
much more going through something, a tragedy of that nature at such a young age. And so, what does resilience kind of mean to you? How would you tell others to build it, or anything else you'd like to add on the topic of resilience? Because we all have a need to be resilient.
Right. I know it is interesting. I think that the farming industry does kind of parallel that a little bit, where you do have to be resilient. There are always going to be um, there are always going to be things that are going to be very hard for you and things that are going to be just a little bit hard, and you have to figure out, what that balance is and how you get through them together. So, whether it be, a hailstorm and a crop is getting completely damaged, you have to figure out how do you build from there, and how do you either save what you can salvage from that field, or do you have a stockpile of it, or can you work with another farmer? There are always um, different ways to make that happen. So I think that's what I appreciate about Todd and Steve. They're just always thinking outside of the box, and they're just problem solvers. I think that that's what I love about Todd is he's always thinking of what's coming up next and how can we fix this and how can we learn from it, or how can we um, how can we get better from it. So I think that him and I are very similar in that way. We're just always kind of forward thinking, and how can you improve, and how can you help others around you improve. And with our team especially, we love to have them have a creative what's the word I'm thinking of. I guess our philosophy is that yes, we have to manage our team for sure, but we always like to have the people around us have their creative freedom to do what they think is also best to make this company better.
Hmm.
So we appreciate that, and I think that Todd and his dad, and even my mom too. I think that my family they've taught us that, and they have taught us to learn from your mistakes, and kind of figure out what it is that you need to move forward. So, um,
So on that same topic of resilience and kind of building that with yourself, so Emily, I really appreciate you sharing that history of being a Columbine survivor. I mean, it's certainly not something that comes up in dinner tables. You don't sit and go, "Oh yeah, and I was a Columbine survivor," or whatever. It's these are these kind of hidden things that build character in ourselves, and they come out at the right time, and for whatever reason it came out today. But it's a good thing because I think it's important to share with people things that happen that build our resilience. So if you could turn back the time and talk to your 18-year-old Emily, what would you tell her? What would you tell her 15 years later?
right. I think, when you're a 15-year-old girl, um, you don't understand, I think, at the time that there will always be challenges, and that there will always be maybe unkind people, and y- you have to adapt to those changes, and you have to know that you have to work hard at reciprocating, this kindness to others too. And not that I was unkind at all. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good heart, but there are just so many times, when you're 15 or 16 years old, that you don't understand how some of your actions will affect others. And so, um, I, of course, learned that as an adult, and since that time period in my life, that you always have to be aware of what you're saying to people, who this person is, what their history is that you may not know, and how you can help them. And so that's kind of what I um, always look at when I'm talking to people. You're kind of always looking at your surroundings, and I think you just have to be kind to people. And gosh, I just wish that, I mean, that resonates especially in 2020, but
So what do you know? 2020 it was a year. We'll just call it that. And
yes.
we all and I love. Kindness cannot be overstated for sure. What do you do to reset your compass when life gets weird?
Sure. I love to be outside. Todd and we love to be outside together too, but especially for myself, I think it's very therapeutic to go for a run. Or we have a crazy coonhound puppy that always needs attention. So, so he keeps us busy with holding us accountable, really, to go for a walk. Or sometimes some of the fields, actually, we live in town in Berthoud, but some of the fields that we farm, they're just up the road from us. So over the summer, usually a few times a week, I take the dog out and I run to one of the rye fields and go check on it, see how things are growing, and just kind of take a break and breathe and enjoy the scenery. And there's a really great view of Long's Peak and the mountains and the Front Range. And so I think that just kind of feeds your soul a little bit to get out and have some good old fashioned vitamin D and and um, soak up the sun a bit. So that kind of recharges me.
I have this amazing visual of amber waves of grain, purple mountains, majesty, and you and your dog running through the fields. I, I want everyone to embed that in their brain right now.
It
So
is just like that. Yes.
I'm a very pastoral person, and that is how I see Colorado. That's my constant vision of Colorado. So I appreciate you supplanting that in our brains for us today.
You're welcome.
So, what is one thing we didn't include today that you want to highlight? It can be personal, it can be just what else do you want to highlight or include that maybe I didn't include?
Yeah, I think we are just going to continue to um, not only campaign for the local farm community with our 100-year lease film, but I think just to get to know our community a little bit more too, and what they need from us, and how we can help. And I think what we're kind of missing, especially in 2020, is just that social interaction with people. And that's kind of what we're built on. We form these relationships with our brewers and our distillers. And yes, we can provide them the world's best grain, and they can make the world's best whiskey or beer out of it. But I think that to have that relationship with us, where you can call us up and drink a beer, or go to a movie, in theory, then that's kind of what's important to us, is just building these relationships that are so meaningful. And I think that that's important to our 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 partners as well. So that's what we're looking forward to in 2021, is to get out there and share a beer with some of the folks that support us, and hoping to have maybe a couple more festivals, or bring some folks up to the field where we can hang out outside and walk in the fields with them and show them where things are grown. And
I want to do that.
um,
I want to do that.
yes, okay, come along.
I'm all over that one. Amber waves of grain.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
We every year for the last 4 years we've hosted our field day, is what we call it, and it's
uh-huh.
a big party ultimately to celebrate the folks that we work with, but to
Mm-hmm.
also have an educational component to it,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
we can show them how the barley is harvested, and it's
Mm-hmm.
usually a live harvest that
Mm-hmm.
we have going on in the background, and we incorporate their beers, and then we incorporate some local food, and so it's just a lot of fun. And we've been missing that, darn it. We usually do that every year, and we didn't have the opportunity to do that last year, but we're hoping that we can do it this year. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. They usually
Yeah. Well,
happens August, September-ish,
yeah.
so we'll see.
So your project's going to leave a huge legacy for in northern Colorado. I can certainly see that.
I
So
hope so.
how so I'm going to include information about Root Shoot and the 100-year project lease in the introduction description of the podcast. I had my mental moment there.
I I hear you. I
let
hear
me
you.
let me redo this one. Okay, so let me ask you this: what do you want to be your legacy, Emily?
Um, I think that I want people to know that our passion is, yes, farming, of course, but I want people to know that the involvement is important to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we get that question often, that, what are you doing this for? And why are you doing this? I especially can get that question from
Mm-hmm.
both sides of the family, and neither Todd or myself have have really wanted kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Todd more so early on, because I think that you always think about passing your farming values and this agriculture land down to the next generation. Um, but I guess it's not necessarily all about that. I think that it's kind of just about something that we're just passionate about now in our lifetime. And we hope that, yes, nieces and nephews, and who knows, maybe one day we will have kids, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe that will be passed down to the next generation. And we hope that mind frame and mindset of preserving land, and hopefully keeping the longevity of Colorado agriculture around. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that hopefully we in our lifetime will convey that significance and importance of family farms and what they mean to Colorado and
Mm-hmm.
the world. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I can't record off all the statistics on family farms, but certainly there over the past decades there has been a reduction, and I know I'm glad to see there's a push in Colorado from the state, but also from businesses like yourselves that really push and have an interest in it and want the community and all the people that are moving here to understand the importance and the value of family farms to this area. So I will post your website and the video, because I think the video is now the lease video is on your website, so people can watch it there. Is that correct?
it
Um,
is. Yep, it is there.
and how else might people follow you, follow Root Shoot, follow Emily, just keep up with what's going on with Root Shoot?
Sure. We are all over social media channels, of course. Of course, you can find us Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, we post different articles on Facebook and kind of behind the scenes and different stories on Instagram as to what we're up to on a daily basis. And um, our website, of course, will lead you directly to everything else you need to know. So, um, pretty easy to find.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for joining me today. I'm sorry there was noise in the background. My husband is grinding a grain down in the basement, and I didn't realize we could hear it up here. So
Hey, I love that he's brewing right now.
I
It's
know.
very,
There you
yeah,
go.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I love
Yes.
that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I'm
Oh,
glad that we could chat, Lisa.
oh, I am too. Thank you so much. So that's a wrap for today. We've so enjoyed you being with us. I hope you learned something new, got some inspiration, and you are ready to move forward with your own new season. Remember, we are living life at any age. Take some time to visit the other social media sites, give us some feedback, shoot me an email on Facebook. And remember, until then, stay safe and keep on living. Cheers.